So as you're jumping up and down, I have to ask you, do you play by the rules? Do you follow rules?
Sometimes, most of the time, I guess.
Are rules made to be broken?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that you're easily saying. Yes, without a doubt. Yes, rules are made to be broken. Well, I think we're going to break a few of them on this episode of the PodMax Podcast.
Welcome to the PodMax Podcast.
What are the rules? I don't know. Could you drink on camera? Is it acceptable? Is it not? I don't know.
I actually heard you gulp like,
No.
Welcome to the PodMax Podcast.
What?
It's Twilight Zone. He's going haywire. Just making rules. We're breaking
I don't know. Are we on the air? Are we off the air? Is there an air?
Who knows? This is reality. It's not reality.
There you go. See, now you're getting it. What is reality? That's what I was going to say. We actually put that gulp in post. That wasn't my real gulp. So the gulp you heard was done by Rob. But I'm talking about rules because, we can go deep. Like, are there rules? Should you play in the rules? Are they all meant to be broken? As it pertains to a podcast, I always like thinking that there are so few rules and it's our job to make it more interesting and relatable by understanding that and breaking, quote unquote, breaking the rules that aren't there. It's your own rules in terms of format. Where am I going with this?
I love that you're saying that because we often create our own rules, especially as business owners. We ask the question, should we do this? Can we do this? And then we always pull back and look at everything and look at each other and say, there's no rules. We can do whatever we want. This is our thing. Or this is your podcast. There are no real rules. It is whatever you want to make it.
Right? That's the definition and meaning of life. So you wanted to talk about this very episode, what number it is, where do we go from here, what's happening? What does the future hold for the PodMax Podcast?
Well, we so wonderfully made it to 25 episodes here of the PodMax Podcast, of which, pulling the curtain back again, we've had many episodes. We pulled them down because they were specifically designed years ago to highlight episodes or podcasts recorded at a PodMax live event. Josh and I said, maybe we could take those down. That's going to confuse people. So we started from scratch, created our own rules.
No rules. That's the thing. You could do something, it doesn't work. You backtrack, you readjust, you pedal, you move. It's the way life works. So yeah.
And so episode 25, here we are in celebration of the 25th episode, a milestone.
Sure.
And Josh and I have realized that we want to see what's next. What can we do? Right now, this show and love this show with it, the context and structure of our segments, which we're going to get to in just a second. Pro and the No, Build It and They Will Come. And then Have You Ever? Exactly. So now we wanted to try something new. We wanted to highlight one of the things in our strengths is our community, our family, our tribe of people that just love and adore, and we as well love them. So we're like, what do we do? Let's call it PodMax Community. Let's call it PodMax Tribe. Until Josh so wonderfully stepped into our office studio. Dude, I got an idea. Literally came out like Doc Brown in Future. He's like, I got an idea. And I was like, what is going on? He's like, it's reunion. It's a family reunion.
Well, I'll tell you why. Why is that, right? My eyes and ears, the radar in the ecosystem, in the world, in pop culture. What's going on? What was all the rage the past few weeks? That darn Friends reunion. And I'm always trying to see things and how it can apply to me and us and the world around me and what you can take and borrow and repurpose and reapply and reimagine, right? A lot of re's. So we were talking about the Friends reunion for the third or fourth time. And earlier, we were talking about the community, the family. I'm like, oh my God, there it is. It was dangling right there. And I'm like, it's the PodMax Podcast. The Reunion, which ties into exactly what you wanted to bring, which our guests will be people who have come through our world, who have come through our event in one form or another to just talk about their life, what they've gained, how they've been, what they've been doing since and because of and from. So you can expect that. Next week, we have, it's all working out perfectly, isn't it? Because our man, Michael Hamm of the Morning Spotlight fame, is going to be in our studio because he's another Jersey guy. It's about time he comes down. So he's going to be here in person. So we thought, how perfect is it that we wanted to go into that. So why don't next week, the three of us record an episode of what will actually be Podmax Podcast, The Reunion, since he's come through more times than fill in the blank with a great joke here answer. And it'll be great. And then in July, Erik and I are going to take off for a little bit. And who is stepping in for 4 episodes in July? Erik?
Oh my goodness. Well, we all love and adore and affectionately call him Larry Love. Some of you know him more as Larry Roberts of the Readily Random podcast. So yeah, he's always been one of us for years. And so it makes sense for him to step in and fill our shoes. But then who else are we bringing to the table, Josh? But none other than Rachel Sparrow, who is heading up our Podmax talent division. So the two of them together, there's obvious magic and fireworks. So we're so happy that the two of them have agreed to step in and fill in for us and the Podmax for the month of July. We're really excited.
That's right. And then August, we shall return with the new format and structure, the Podmax Podcast, The Reunion, which we're breaking all the rules. That's why we started with that to begin with. So there you go.
Yeah.
Rule breakers.
I'm going to break rule number 3. I think we've broken at least 2 so far.
At least.
We're going to skip over Pro in the Know. Because, I mean, as you may love and adore it, we're jumping in. We spent a lot of time on this intro and what we like to call the cold open. But yeah, I mean, let's skip it, Josh. Let's skip it.
And yet I was so excited. Look at my notes. Bro, okay. I have my notes right here.
Okay,
here, just for those that want, here, this is what we were going to talk about that.
We can do it or not, but...
Exercise app integration will match iHeart podcasts and music with audio coaching. Check out Moov, M-U-U-V, with 2 umlauts over the U.
2 umlauts.
For the record, right?
Yeah,
because that's what it's called, right?
There are no umlauts on my keyboard, so I don't know how I'm supposed to type that in, Josh.
Right. But wow, Erik just broke a rule on the fly. Wow.
We're breaking rules. We're reinventing. But yeah, we were excited about that. You know, fitness apps integrated with podcasts and audio experiences is always good.
You know what we should do, though, just for posterity's sake? I would love to have Rob play the intro, and then we can move in and out of it.
Okay, let's do that then.
So that was Pro in the Know.
Pro in the Know.
Episode 25, man, the hinges are off. Kicking doors down.
You know what it is? It's literally like the last day of school. Nobody cares, right? Nobody's in their seat. Nobody's taking anything seriously. Nobody's doing the work.
Watch this be the most downloaded episode of all of our shows combined. And we're gonna be like, maybe we need to bring this back in an unfiltered, rule-breaking format.
Well, there are only the rules that we self-imposed rules, right?
Ooh,
think about life.
Yes.
What rules are you self-imposing? So seriously, now we're going to move on to the second segment of the show. It is, of course, Build It and They Will Come.
Build it and they will come.
So Josh,
I am going to miss those, by the way.
Maybe some way, some form, it'll make a comeback.
Couldn't imagine how.
We poured a lot of love into those.
Yeah.
And thank Rob for leading the charge on that. So I want to tell you a story.
Oh, I like stories.
When I first started my podcast, I would interview friends, right? Like you, other people. These friends potentially became business partners. And there was this man by the name of Chad Gallagher who was a guest on my show. And he didn't know about podcasts. He didn't know if, what it would sound like, or if it would be professional or amateur or what. So I interviewed him. It released. This is several years ago.
Mhm.
And he called me and said, dude, I had no idea. Like, your podcast was legit. Like, that was
Ooh.
awesome. Thank you. He never listened to my show before. Maybe he was like the 15th or the 20th episode, something like that, very early on.
Mhm.
And I said, dude, thank you for that. He was like, I'm really curious. He's like, he started asking questions. Eventually, the ask came and he said, can you create one for me? Absolutely. Why not? Let's try it. Let's do it. Taking from his story, taking from who he is. He was from the tech industry. He was in the early stages of advertising.com. So he was there during that build and then left.
Hmm.
So I'm like, dude, you're a tech guy, and you're a real estate investing guy. Why don't we combine the two? So, through put pen to paper and threw things on the wall. And I was like, dude, what about hackers? That was a cool word in the 90s, wasn't it? Let's smash them together. He's like, I love it. Yes, real estate hacker. It
Wow.
became a podcast, right? We started to produce his show, started to, give him a platform. And now he had conversations being recorded, conversations he was already having.
Hmm.
It has now, Josh, as you
Yes.
know,
Mhm.
has evolved into a conference, the Real Estate Hackers, of which the OAB and the PodMax team are
Mhm.
attending, bringing full force and love to the PodMax community and building and growing within a conference of 700 to 800 attendees.
Hmm.
I mean, what do you think of that, Josh? He built it and we came. We're all coming.
So it started first and foremost as a podcast, which then became the brand and the catalyst and the launching point for a bigger business, which now includes a conference. I love it.
Can anyone out there ever imagine their podcast started in a basement, such as I did, becomes this behemoth of a community that eventually comes together in one room, which is what's going to happen this weekend. Josh, Rob, Meredith, Rachel, we're all going to be there in full force and representing PodMax the fullest to something that we helped birth. I mean, how surreal is that? We created and helped grow this brand, which evolved into a community and evolved into a conference of hundreds and hundreds of people that are attending. So, I mean, it's pretty wild and one of the best case scenarios for creating a podcast. Your community grows to the point where you can actually hold a conference and do more things together and build.
There's no limit. There are no rules. You want to create it into a, like, didn't Invest Her community do something similar? How did their show fit into? So there are all these examples of, you could do meetups, you can do a membership deal, you could do courses and all things and programs under your brand that just started and birthed as a podcast, as a show. So go into it thinking, where is the bigger opportunity? Because I'm sure many of us use the podcast to support the marketing channel of whatever the business is. But I think what we're also saying here is that in and of itself could become a bigger brand in and of itself that you might not have seen in tandem with your current business ventures that it may or may not be supporting.
Yeah, it's really a wonderful evolution. And I think that if you start a podcast and it's a piece of a bigger picture, this could very well be something that starts up for you as well. I like you brought up Invest Her. That's a community that started through a podcast, just value. And then meetups started to pop up, all over the country, to the point where now there's, honestly, Josh, I think there's 50,000 people in the community. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. There's a lot of people in her community, and it started as a podcast 3 or 4 years ago. And now they do summits virtually, and now they do live events. So yeah, if you really take your podcast seriously and understand and know that that's not the be all and end all, if something grand, something bigger, then this is a really cool sort of story and a way to inspire you to build and do something more with your community.
Yeah.
So I want to wrap up and let's move on to our next segment, Have You Ever?
Have you ever?
On this segment, we take something we may or may not have done on either side of the mic and discuss it. Today's Have You Ever is, have you ever rebranded the format and structure of your current show? We're not talking about something our man Larry Love has done, which is taken his show and then created a second show, right? Not terribly unique. Many have done such a thing, but we're talking about taking your show as it is, same name, same brand, same everything, and reworked the entire structure under that umbrella.
I would like to say yes, because we're doing it in real time, Josh.
Mhm.
Right? We're not putting the Podmax podcast to bed. We're evolving. We're going to the next season, which is another wonderful tactic you can use and strategy to reinvent your show without putting it to rest.
No rules.
Yeah.
Right. No rules, especially with seasons. I see that question so often in the industry. People ask about, how many constitute a season? What constitutes a season? No rules. Make it up, whatever you want. Unlike television, for example, which has a little bit more rules and structure into really what a season is and what it needs to be. But podcasting at the current time, no rules with the season. It's almost arbitrary, I think.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if and when, what happens, if I'm going to enjoy the rules, because the podcast industry is becoming a little more legitimized. There's more and more corporations and people coming in that are putting structure to what we do and creating the norm, right? Creating the blueprint for success, whatever that means for you. So I love the Wild West aspect of it. But I could see how it's all evolving into something that people are going to want to follow. Hey, Rogan did this and this one did that. And, we can always pull back. I mean, I feel like we're the industry, we're a part of the industry that's like the indie band, and there's these big corporate sort of bands that hit Madison Square Garden and big stages, although we'd love to be there as well. But I do love the community aspect of, we know our people. Like, I love playing the small venues and the large venues. But anyway, I'm just throwing to my music roots here because it's very similar in feel.
Yeah, I like that you brought music into it, because I was thinking a similar thing, that it's like music. There's a certain genre of music that is radio hit, right? And pop hit and pop culture.
Yeah.
But then there's all these different channels and different stations and different artistic versions of music and a song, and podcasts are no different and are going to be no different. To your point of what you're saying, like, I'm sure as the years go by, there's going to be a certain level of style of podcast that is of wider audience appeal, but there's always going to be, hey, create whatever you want, create as artistic and creative as you want, and see what you get from it, who's attracted to it, and make it as legitimate as possible. But it might not be mass appeal like on the radio, for example. So I'm sure there are those rules, but it's all good because it's all creative pursuit.
It's funny because, I didn't intend to go down the rabbit hole in terms of this sort of metaphor. But you're right. I mean, it's almost exactly the same, because then you have the artists, say called Joe Rogan, who hit the main stage, got a huge contract, signed to a record deal, right? I remember him when, I'm the guy that, loved Pearl Jam before. I'm dating myself, when they were playing tiny, holes in the wall, and there was 50 of us in a sweaty club. And then when they hit arenas and started, they became global. I was kind of not resentful, but there's always that crowd. They're like, I knew them when, and I loved them when they were small. Now they've gone big. And that's kind of, you could still love Rogan and the bigger brands for who and what they've evolved into. But yeah, I think there's also something to be said for like our roots and where we're coming from as we grow together as a community, which is, fans. It's even the same word. Now they're trying to transition to followers. But yeah, it's got the same flavor as the music industry. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there you go. A lot of intrigue in this 25th episode that is really the final quote unquote episode of this iteration of the show. Let's do a quick recap. We started with Pro in the Know. Never got off the ground though. A first in history.
Breaking the rules, man. That's how it all started.
Yeah. I mean, we basically hinted that there's this cool app called Moov, MUUV, that integrates podcast playlists and music playlists with your workout from iHeartRadio. Pretty cool. Then we did Build It and They Will Come, which was what, Erik?
Yeah, we just told the story about, Chad Gallagher, who created a brand, and we helped them build a brand as a podcast first, which has evolved into a community of people that love him and his brand and what he provides in all his businesses, and including the podcast. And now we're attending live, the PodMax team, the Real Estate Hackers Conference. So the the podcast has evolved into a conference, which is probably one of the best trajectories that you can you can create for yourself. When that's the dream, to create a podcast that will pull and inspire hundreds of people to show up to a conference.
And then have you ever restructured or rebranded your current show into a completely different format? We are doing that in real time. This is the 25th and final episode in this current iteration. We're coming to the table in August, in about 5 weeks, I guess it is, with the PodMax podcast, The Reunion, where Erik and I welcome guests who have been through our ecosystem in one form or another, and we just have a grand old time chatting.
Telling old stories around the barbecue.
Why not?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Be good. All right. So let's bring in the next wonderful expert. And whoa, something's going on here too.
Yeah.
We got Todd. And is it Amber?
We have, oh my God, was there a wrong button push?
Amber, you've grown a beard.
Yep. Yeah. You really downgraded today going from Amber to me. So sorry, Todd. I'll do my best though.
I'm very excited. I've been waiting all morning to say this, but coming up next, the on-air brands. This week's episode is the Ham and G's episode.
Jeez, Ham and G's.
Got it.
G?
Yeah,
I see what you
like
did
that?
there.
You like that? The Ham and G's episode.
Love it.
I can also throw some love here because every square, for those of you who are listening, there's 4 of us on here. It's Joyzy.
Oh,
Wow.
goodness,
A lot of
too
love
much.
in Jersey.
Yeah. And at least on my screen, when we go top left all the way around, to me, it's like the growth of a beard. No beard, double beard, a little bit more, and then like this thing that I got going on.
That's
Oh
great.
my God. I know. I've been growing this thing for like a week and change. I'm like, I don't know why.
Same.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That is incredible. So what is going on here? We have Todd Giannatasio. We have Mike Ham. What is happening? Fill us in, guys.
We're breaking all the rules, like you said, breaking all the rules. Amber, actually, someone did break the rules. She's in court right now because she's an attorney. So she's
on that side of the table.
Yeah,
Okay.
so she's defending someone who did break the rules, I'm assuming. But we're bringing in Mike today, and we're going to talk about his title insurance business and his podcast and how they have tied together to help him grow his brand and his business and how all that stuff works. And just like you guys were talking about with Chad is, the media that we create is what gets the attention and builds an audience. And how do you leverage that into opportunities?
What do you say, Mike Ham?
Well, I'm excited. I mean, I got this text from a number that I did not have in my phone yesterday. And it was like, hey, it's Todd. It's Todd G. I was like, oh, geez. And then next thing I know, he was like, hey, do you want to come on the on-air brands and be the Phil and Amber? And I was like, yeah, of course I do. So I was just really pumped because, I try to jump on here and listen to you guys live. And now to be in the chair, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure for this part, because I am part of that ecosystem, I think, that you were talking about before. And I don't want to put a bad face to it as much as, it may be. So we'll do my best.
You are the Jay Leno to the Johnny Carson, I think is what you're feeling, right?
Yes, right. Yeah. Or like the Conan, where Conan came in for like a week and then got replaced again by Leno.
I love it.
Yeah.
143 episodes. It was extraordinary. What's up, Erik?
Depending on how this episode goes, Mike, we may need to cancel your live appearance next week. So yeah, hopefully you knock this one out.
Yeah, no pressure. No pressure. I'm starting to sweat.
No pressure.
Hopefully you don't see the pit stains.
Well,
so what are we looking forward to?
Well, before you get into that, Todd, we were talking about Amber's court appearance for today, and you came up with the idea. You're like, hey, why don't we just bring somebody in? I can talk with them, and they'll fill in. I said, who do you got in mind? Why did Mike Hamm come to mind immediately? The one and only name.
Well, because, you know, the On Air Brands show is not just podcasting for podcasters' sake, right? It's not about like, oh, I feel like telling stories, let me turn the mic on and record it. It's really about, you know, how can we leverage the power of podcasting and having a show to build a brand? And I think, you know, Mike was the first person who popped into my head from, you know, we see him a lot. I see him a lot in my social feeds. We see him at all the events. So for whatever reason, when I thought of business plus podcast, his name was the first one that popped up. And I thought he was a great example of someone who fits the mold of doing these two things together. You know, and that's where it came from.
Mike, yeah, that's extraordinary, isn't it? That you've been doing the work that we all always preach. Like, why are we doing this? It's marketing, right? It's being out there, putting yourself forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's really what it kind of came down to last year. You know, I mean, it was an opportunity. I mean, obviously 2020 was a year that presented a lot of challenges, but I think that there were people, and I like to think of myself in that scope of people that try to like view it as an opportunity to kind of change how you do things, you know? So like trying to build something like this through a podcast and through being on, you know, social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever, and trying to grow a personal brand and kind of get myself out there more. And now I'm seeing things start to kind of come together because now I could do my in-person stuff again and have this virtual podcast presence, social presence, where now I can marry the two together and just absolutely crush it. You know, so that's what I'm really excited about. And I'm excited to talk to Todd about it today. And I was pumped when he asked me and he was like, this is what I'm thinking. And I was like, that's like my wheelhouse. I mean, that's softball. I mean, I'm going to crank it out of the park. I already know it.
Oh, man, he's calling his shot. Babe Ruth over here. So make sure everybody.
Babe Ruth.
If you're watching live, make sure you hit up facebook.com/onairbrands live at noon to watch this or catch episode number 14 of season 3 in your favorite podcast player.
Love it. Love it. Mike, I just wanted to give you big love and shout out to your skill. And when I listen to your show, and it's funny, just like we talked earlier, when Chad created Real Estate Hackers podcast, he didn't listen or recognize my show until he was on it. So when I was on your show, I was like, and I listened to it, I was like, this dude's amazing. Like this show is so pro. And I'm just so happy and honored that you're in with us. You're, you know, Josh and Todd and the whole community loves you. And I want to plug the Morning Spotlight. Check it out. He's got a fantastic show with wonderful guests. Not just about talking about me, but you've introduced me to some amazing people on your show. So it's really
check
cool
out
to have you.
morningspotlight.com/Erik Cabral.
That's the affiliate link.
Yeah. So good. So good.
Affiliate link.
We're looking forward to having you and doing more stuff together. So yeah, cool. And thanks for Todd for manifesting that, theuniverse.com.
Somebody please take us out. 25 episodes has been extraordinary. We'll see you next time. Stay tuned for the On Air Brands live show with the Ham and G's show on your social platforms.
I think everybody kind of knows or has a feeling that podcasting is like a thing, you know, it's just a matter of how it gets incorporated into their business, into their story.
Where else can you get on an event, like in person or online, and have like this collection of people? Any person that this group and this community attracts just like brings it.
There is no community like the PodMax community, guys.
I love PodMax. I love everything about this environment, this family, and every one of these events. It's just tremendous.
This is our 5th time here, and every time it just gets better and better. I mean, the relationships the format of the event, and the opportunities to put us in front of people like David, for example.
So we're always open to having deeper and more meaningful conversations one-on-one with each and every one of you to say, all right, how do we help each other? We're all in the same game here. It's life, right? Let's just do it as best as we can and have a blast doing it.
I am just like living off the energy from my 2 interviews this morning, getting pumped for my 3rd interview.
There was just a lot of personality that was brought. There was a lot of deep conversations that I wasn't anticipating. It just created magic.
Are you an entrepreneur? Apply now to be a podcast guest at podmax.co.